So let me share my screen. Apologies that my hazy background is saying in the breakout room. I'm here in Vegas going to speak at another conference. So I don't usually have my normal setup for greater clarity, but let me find where my PowerPoint is. There we go. And let's go ahead and start the show. So you'll see a pretty common theme here in my presentation. In addition to being in local SEO, I've also been a professional wrestler for the past 20 years. So I usually rely on that to kind of give a thematic approach to it. And of course, without having two screens, I can't see anyone. So can you confirm that you can see the understanding the algorithm?
Confirmed.
All right, great.
Yes.
So understanding the algorithm, we're going to go through a sort of a quick crash course on local SEO. We're going to hit on some core tenets that are sort of universally true no matter what industry you're in. Of course, local SEO is different than traditional SEO. Local SEO is really for businesses that either have a brick and mortar that people come into to conduct business, or someone like a service area. So car dealership, or sort of like a yard technician who comes out to spray for pests. So it's really more locally based. However, if you're an enterprise company, there still are some true core aspects of content creation that would still be applicable as well. So my name is Dane Saville. I'm Director of Brand Experience at Search Lab Digital. As I said, I've been a weekend warrior as a pro wrestler. So I like to tell people, avoid getting smashed by staying ahead of the curve. So of course, getting a punch to the face is never good, even digitally speaking. And so one of the things I'd like to talk to people is to stop focus on keyword ranking. So you don't have your arm raised in victory by ranking for a keyword. And here's what I mean by that. Why would we not want to focus on ranking, showing up number one for a keyword? So let's say, for example, you're working with an agency and they talk about how you're ranking really well for dementia care, this core head term, dementia care. But what they might not share with you is that you might be showing up for a lot of searches for dementia care facilities near me. But let's say you are a company that you don't have a facility. You go into people's homes with nursing care and you do in-home care. So there'll be a lot of traffic being driven to your website that is not your core audience, that is not someone who's going to connect with you and your business, because the search intent is misaligned from the actual operation of the business. Conversely, if you are ranking for a lot of or getting a lot of search traffic for dementia home care, but you're a facility in which you have dementia care seniors come in and live in an assisted facility, same sort of thing. So you don't want to focus on core head terms for ranking. Also, ranking is also an approximation. So even if you go into Google Search Console, Google can't even tell you exactly where you fall, because number one, as a local business, proximity to the consumer matters most. So there's going to be a lot of volatility there. Number two, it's also an approximation because different varying intents, different variants of types of searches, whether or not you have those specific phrases or keywords on the site or not, is going to make a big deal. So instead, ask about real world growth. So as you're working with an agency or representing a company as their conduit to that agency, ask about real world growth, and that is impressions and clicks. So impressions being that you're showing up actually as a clickable result, clicks being that there are actual clicks happening from those different types of searches happening through to the website. And that can be a variety of queries. And of course, when we talk about, and I will hopefully hit on at the core end of this, sort of the AI overviews and Perplexity and Search GPT, the way people are conducting searches on with those types of platforms is a lot more conversational. So there's going to be a lot more longer tail queries that are going to be driving a lot of actual consumer driven growth for local businesses around these long tail queries. So ask specific questions about, show me some of the actual consumer questions happening that are driving visibility for a business. So as opposed to dementia care, will Medicare pay for home health care for dementia patients? What's the difference between memory care and dementia care? Can a dementia patient refuse care? There are actual real world questions, objections, concerns that consumers have. And if you want to show up in search, you should have a piece of content per concept that you want to show up for. With that said, not all keywords or queries merit being an individual piece of content. So recently, and I told in the breakout room, and I should have prefaced this too, I recently spoke at a senior care facility conference. And so a lot of this is going to be based around senior care. So I saw this actually on a senior care website where there were multiple queries that each were an individual piece of content. How to care for dementia patients, how do you care for someone with dementia, and do's and don'ts of dementia care. Semantically speaking, and in terms of intent, these are all really asking for the same type of information. So these shouldn't be separate pieces of content, but coalesced into a single big evergreen piece of content that delivers value. But again, you want to use not just the what people search for, but how they search for it. So the closer you can tie the way you optimize and the way you write content with correlating to how people search for things, the greater that correlation is for search engines to understand that contextually and semantically, this is the best resource for people in the market because you have that language that actual consumers are using. And then, of course, you're addressing that intent. You're satisfying that intent to keep them on the website. And those engagements are a core ranking factor. Your agency should always get your approval for content plan. So again, whether you're directly working with an agency or you're sort of a consultant or conduit for a small business with their agency, make sure you understand what is the strategy and why, because otherwise, a lot of folks get content like this. You know, why Saville Care is the best senior care facility in Pensacola, Florida. I've seen content like that. And agencies will go, well, look, we have the word best, we have senior care, we have your brand name worked in there. But no one is searching for why Saville Care or why brand name care is the best senior care facility. And then secondly, search engines don't look for content that tries to justify why someone's saying they're the best. What search engines are going to do is look at reviews, aggregate reviews, whether you're on a specific review website, your Google Business Profile review count and score. They're going to look for where are their resources that are putting together a way to assess who is the best, not who's writing content to say they're the best. Same thing with like helping the elderly care for their yards during the fall. Sure, that could be a good piece of content, but it's not actually tied to real world growth. Ensure your Google Business Profile is fully developed. A lot of businesses ignore different elements because they're not a direct ranking factor. But by championing them, you can slam the competition. So we reviewed more than 3,000 small business Google profiles because we don't just want to trust what Google tells us because they obfuscate a lot. We want to understand statistically relevant information to potentially implement new best practices for our partners. There are a few things that we discovered that just aligned with what Google tells us. Again, proximity matters most. So distance from the searcher, the Google profiles of those 3,000 that on average ranked number one were 4.7 miles from the searcher conducting the search. The ranked number 10th is 12.7 miles. Nothing you can do about your proximity unless you're going to pick up and move your business. But again, just kind of confirming that proximity is a true ranking factor, particularly for the local pack. The phone number on the website matches the Google Business Profile. Again, number one ranked GBP, 65.5% had the matching phone number. Number 10th ranked 30.5%. You also, a lot of small businesses will want to use call tracking. You can use call tracking, but don't use 800 numbers. Talk to your like CallRail or whatever provider you have to get local call tracking numbers. Average review count, number one ranked, 2,381 reviews. Number 10, 1,100 reviews. However, don't take that as gospel, like, oh, like I should get 2,381 reviews or more. Just assess in your market, how are you competing against other local businesses in your industry, and what is their review count? That's sort of the threshold to set to want to beat. But again, we can see that the more reviews, the better the score, or the better the rank. Average review rating was 4.1 in the number one spot, 3.7 in the number 10 spot. So you can see on the margins here, like 3.7 to 4.1 can potentially make a real big difference. The sweet spot is usually a 4.6 to 4.8. Everyone goes, well, I want a 5.0. 5.0 can look kind of fishy, particularly if you have people leaving reviews that never left reviews before, or they're a very shallow review. It's okay to have bad reviews, right? So in terms of like public relations, it matters that you respond to the review. So review response is not a ranking factor, but it is sort of a PR facing thing, right? You want to show people that you care about the experience they're having with your business. Other averages, reviews 2 average per month, 9-day response time. So we always tell our partners try to do better than that in terms of sourcing reviews and response time to reviews. Review justifications. If you can guide people to better understand how to leave a review, and we always, for our partners, create a page of content that kind of you can send consumers to that explains how to leave the review. And it's like, mention who you work with, mention the product or service you got. Here are different things you can do, because as you can see in this slide, justifications, when you search for specific key terms, and those key terms are in your reviews, they show up as a justification natively in the Google Business Profile. And again, that relevancy, if I'm looking for best memory care facilities near me, and we see that memory care shows up in this Google Business Profile, and we see memory care, and then I see that, hey, it feels like home and staff is very knowledgeable about the topic of which I have searched, that's a lot more relevant for me, and there's a correlation between that and click-throughs. Keyword on the GBP landing page, number 1 spot, 60%, number 10 spot, 33%. So make sure that you have the right keywords on your home page, which is typically the GBP landing page. Make sure those keywords are on there. Do competitive analysis. Look at your competitors. What keywords do they have on their homepage? Look at Google Business Profile Insights to see what type of searches you're starting to show up for, you're getting visibility for, making sure those keywords are also on your homepage as well. So there's some analysis you can do to make sure you have the right keywords on the page. Average word count, number 1 spot, 870 words, number 10, 738. Average number of questions in the Q&A, 16 questions for the number 1 spot, ranked spot, 5.8 for number 10. Average number of posts, 7.5 number 1, 1.8 number 10. Those are not a direct ranking factor, but it's a conversion opportunity. If you can put in that little bit of sweat equity to produce highly engaged Google posts to drive them through to your website's the only place your competitors' services and products are not. There is no silver bullet, but everything you can do to apply a best practice, the better shot you have at getting those clicks. Avoid getting smashed by understanding the essentials of local SEO. I know I'm already running short on time. I'm trying to talk fast, but hit the points. I'll skip that slide. We'll get right to the crux of it. There are certain things important on a website. Title tags are one of the first pieces of code that bots read to understand what is this page of content about. You want to craft for people, but optimize for Google. You want to front load those title tags with the core keywords that are most important to that type of page. And so for a homepage of a senior care or retirement community, you want to have retirement community and then in Pensacola. Again, you want to reinforce not just the what, but the where, because it's like a GPS device. If your GPS says in 3.2 miles, turn right and left, or 3.2 miles, and they'll give you direction, you're going to get lost. Having those signals in place on every page of content, the what and the where for local businesses is key. The reason a lot of agencies used to promote putting in the brand name up front is because the name wouldn't show up organically in the results before, so you'd had to have it in the title tag. Now, search engines like Google pull in your brand name and your logo natively. Headings, think about the structure of your content. Again, everything on a page of content should be based around consumer search. So we can see here this particular senior care facility, elegant and expansive retirement in Pensacola, Florida. We're missing the word community, which would be a core keyword, because we're not just talking about investing in retirement, right? What are we talking about in regards of retirement? It's a retirement community. Then we have things like the acts different, residents satisfaction, long tenured staff. Those are not based on real world consumer search. Those are value propositions. So there's statistically relevant volume of search for things like how to choose a retirement community. Well, then you can work in, check out resident satisfaction. Ask about how long tenured their staff is. So you can work in your value propositions, but still tie the headings to actual real world consumer search that are semantically and contextually related to the primary keyword on the page. So always make sure structure of content is also based on real world search. Title tags, again, subacute rehab, we have that core keyword. Getting you home as quickly as possible, that's irrelevant. That's not even related to what that core keyword is. Again, do some keyword research to understand what are other searches related to subacute rehab and work that into the title tag if possible. What I call that is getting you home as quickly as possible. It's called fluff garbage. It's just words for the sake of words being in a title tag. And same thing here, headings. Subacute rehab assists patients who are recovering from. It's an incomplete thought in that heading. Again, you're not having a structure for search engines to understand specifically what that page is about. And again, this is not really tied to actual consumer search around these things. Make sure you have local schema in place that helps, particularly with knowledge panels and particularly like FAQ schema as well, with rich snippets, things like that. It'll also help with AI overviews. Again, this is a technical thing to give more clarity for search engines to then populate the correct information in search results. Alt text, make sure that you have alt text that is very clear. Every element on a page of content should support why it's on that page of content. So do better than just assisted living facility. Again, work in the geo when possible, work in the actual physical description of the picture itself. Reviews page, I'm going to hit on this, and then I'm going to expedite closing this out because I know I'm over on time. Reviews pages should link consumers out to actual review sites. If you do something like this where it's leave a review and leave a rating and it's a private review, that's review gating. So if you're in the United States as a small business, not only can Google hit you with a penalty, it's a potential violation of FTC law. I've known car dealerships to get hit with a $100,000 fine by doing review gating like this. Have a future perspective. Again, I'm going to expedite this. You can see with AI overviews, they still give actual links to content that helps provide the information in the AI overviews. So the idea of content and clarity of structure and content and working in things like schema and having title tags and headings structured and crafted the right way, you can show up in those AI overviews. Same with Perplexity, ChatGPT, all these different search and new types of search engines, AI engines, they still need to source content from some resource, and small businesses show up as being some of those resources. So by being the best answer in your market, there's no competitor that you can't beat. You got to find the right opportunities and have the right optimizations in place. So I know I had to go pretty fast there. As I told you, I meander through my thoughts sometimes, and there was a lot to pack in there because local SEO has different elements that you need to have in place that a lot of other businesses don't have to worry about. So with that, I'm going to shut up and let, I know I saw some questions pop up in the chat. I can get to those, or if the moderator, if you wanted
Yeah.
to sort of source those, I'm going
Thanks, Dane. Thanks, Dane. I mean, out of the gate, you had me with pro wrestler, or semi-pro. I don't remember how you classified your wrestling quality, but so Taylor had a question in here. Are there review sites to focus on, or should you focus on industry-specific review sites?
Yeah, so of course Google Business Profile, champion of course Google, Google still having the lion's share despite all the lawsuits happening. Yelp, because it's still tied to Apple Maps. Yelp, I personally consider to be just a cesspool of negativity, but my personal insights don't impact my professional recommendations. And because it is still tied to Apple Maps, even though there's been articles for like 2-3 years now about the deprecation of that, I would just say Yelp is a primary aggregate review site that you should at least have, even if you don't pay to play with review responses, at least have a listing and have it claimed. And then industry specific review sites. So like for car dealers, it's like dealerrater.com. I know I forget the one for legal right off the top of my head, but I know there's for legal, for senior care, there's all those industry specific. So whichever ones you feel are most relevant to your business, definitely have a profile on there to aggregate new reviews.
Okay. If others have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I had a question about blogs versus guides versus FAQs. Are they all the same? Pick one and go with it. What's your take on that?
So FAQs, so for example, and again, I'll try to be as concrete as I can. So in the automotive world, a lot of agencies will create a blog around towing capacity of a Ford F-150. Well, you don't need 1,500 words to answer the towing capacity of Ford F-150. It's about, 2 words, right? It's, 15,000 pounds of torque. So FAQ should be for related phrases that don't require a whole piece of content dedicated to them. So for automotive, it'd be, there's a Ford F-150, F-250, F-350, there's all different trim levels. So you can go in and you can just create sort of a FAQ around all those different types of trims and models, and then apply FAQ schema. So the FAQ would work for that. However, if there's like a longer tail query, like, what are the safety benefits of the Honda Civic versus Toyota Corolla? Well, there's a lot to glean from a search like that. So I'd base it on the type of content based on the substance of the answer. Also, same with consumer consumption. Is it something that would be best suited to be a video? Is it something that's best suited to be an infographic? Is it something to be best suited as a low funnel page of content, a complementary piece like a blog, an FAQ? So again, search intent and substance of response would really guide how I would determine the type of piece of content to create.
Okay. I'll keep going with my questions. But again, if others have questions, throw them in the chat. How closely should I watch or emulate what my local competitors are doing?
So you don't necessarily want to emulate, but you want to see where those gaps are that you have that your competitors do not. And that can come through competitive insights through tools like SEMrush, where you're seeing what keywords and phrases they're getting visibility for that you are not. You can look at even a content assessment. You can do like a screaming frog crawl of their site and sort of do sort of a content audit of what are the pieces they have, what are the core keywords on those pieces. And you can base it on typically on like the URL structure to kind of determine if they've done SEO well, to determine sort of the content of the page. Then you can sort of extract those URLs and then do an analysis of what information do they have on the page, and do you have that page, number one? And if you do you have better information, and is it structured better than theirs? So I wouldn't say emulate, but use it to assess how well you are competing for that keyword, and then make structural, contextual keyword changes to be the better resource in that particular market.
Okay. Parker, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. This really helpful. I just had a question about, I like how you mentioned, think through what types of questions your customers may be asking. That's like not about your company, but just more about like dementia care, other things. And you mentioned creating content for that. I'm curious just in terms of structure, what that looks like. Is that like you create a document, that's put up there and then maybe that links back to your website, or is that like a blog post maybe in your website? I'm just curious like how you would recommend doing that.
Yeah. So the way that search engines look at websites is that everything in the navigation are your most important pages, and everything that's closest to the homepage in terms of clicks. So a page that's one click away from the homepage is more, you're telling search engines that's more important than a page 2 clicks away from the homepage. So navigation elements, so your menu on your website should be those low funnel sort of moneymaker pages. They should be based on purchase intent types of queries that are happening. So then when you craft things like, how to care for, my elderly parent who has dementia, that's more of information seeking. So I would create that as a blog and then say to yourself, okay, what other content do I have on my site that would make sense in the customer journey? And based on that, maybe it's not just linking them to the dementia care services page because they're just trying to get some information. So then contextually thinking about what drove them there, what would be a logical next step? Maybe it would be, a page of content about steps for ensuring you have the best care for your parent at home. So maybe it's even more precise steps about like just sort of the breadth and the resources needed to be able to fulfill care for your parent. And then maybe when they realize, wow, this is a lot, it's going to cost a lot of money if I do this independently, then that page of content then links to that low funnel, we offer dementia care services pages. So I would go like the longer tail query should be your blog. And then from there, understanding what makes the most sense for where to send them next. And then should that be that low funnel navigational menu page, or should I create another blog that just takes them a step further down the funnel into that? So longer tail queries, blogs, short tail purchase intent searches like dementia care facilities near me, dementia care facilities Pensacola, et cetera, and other variants, having those low funnel pages. Does that kind of answer it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that does.
great.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Chris Holt, do you want to fill in more? So Chris said 7 posts per week. This is when you were showing the, number 1 versus number 10. What does a post entail? Blogs, or does this include social media? Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, it pretty much sums it up. I'm just wondering if that's on-site posts, or does that include links back to the site from social media or other places?
Gotcha. So great question. I want to clarify because I know I kind of rushed through some of that content. That's specifically for posts on your Google Business Profile. So Google Business Profile posts. So that's not anything to do on your website. There's a feature on your GBPs to do Google posts. Those are not a direct ranking factor. And to make it easy so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, I always recommend to folks go into Google Analytics or have your analytics person or your agency look, understand where you're having the most highly engaged sessions on your website. What is the context and content of that page that you're getting the most highly engaged sessions? How can we parlay that into Google posts? Because you would think that if you're showing up for that keyword, you make sure you have that keyword on your landing page, maybe even worked in your GBP meta description or your business description, then you have that post that's related to that to drive more highly engaged sessions through to the site. So that was just purely based on Google business profile posts that go up.
Awesome. Question from Imani. Oh, yes, we will get a copy of this afterwards. We'll post that out. Welcome in, Imani. Let's see. Taylor, do you want to come off mute with a couple of questions you had?
Yeah, thanks. Other than SEMrush and Screaming Frog, are there tools that you would recommend that we be using, and which one should we subscribe to first?
Yeah. Bright Local for local businesses is a good one because that will give you a grid of ranking, keyword ranking. That's much more accurate than Google Search Console, Moz, any other SEMrush, any other tool, because that gives you the idea of a geographical grid of where you're ranking. And so that's much more specific. So I would definitely rely on, if you're going to ask about ranking from your agency, that grid will be much more highly specific, and then talk about strategies around which that you're going to, what is the strategy behind more growth in areas of that grid where you're not as strong where you are in as others. And you can set that grid to different parameters. It kind of depends on your business. Like if you're again, like a pest yard sprayer, like you'll probably have a larger geographical base that you're going to want to cover versus, your, a car dealer, understanding sort of in your market, how many miles do people come from to get to your dealership. You'd set your grid differently. So definitely like Bright Local is a good tool. I like SEMrush better than Ahrefs. You'll talk to any number of SEOs, and some like Ahrefs better. It's just kind of down to personal preference. I just like the interface of SEMrush a little bit more. I just like using that tool more. But SEMrush or Ahrefs, take your pick. If you have the budget to do both, you can do both. Moz Local is pretty good as a layer of insights. But I would say primarily Screaming Frog is great for technical issues and understanding how elements on your site are optimized and what are missing. Like, gives you like missing meta descriptions, missing H1s, missing title tags. You can set parameters like, for example, when I talked about don't front load your title tag with your brand name, have the keyword, you can apply a filter that filters out every page in which the title tag starts with the brand name. So Screaming Frog is great for holistic cleanup. Google Search Console coupled with SEMrush would be a good way to understand keyword research. I would rely more on Google Search Console for growth because that gives you impressions and clicks, whereas SEMrush just gives you that high level 10,000 foot view of ranking. So Google Search Console, of course, is a free product, is really good as well. If you have the budget, you can use BigQuery and you can actually extract, because Google Search Console only gives you like 10% of overall data, whereas like BigQuery can pull in all of the data. So if you work with a developer who can create sort of like a Google Looker Studio report that pulls in all that information, you can get a lot more data out of it as well. So it just kind of depends on budget. So I know I meandered through all my thoughts. SEMrush, Google Search Console, Bright Local for sure, and then other tools to help you monitor things. Whitespark has a good GBP tool in which it alerts you and you can accept or reject all sorts of changes to your profile because there can be user edits that are suggested. So that way, instead of having to log in and every time you have a change that might be a user edit or even competitors sort of black hat SEOing changing things on you, Whitespark's a good tool for that. And Little Warden is a great tool that will alert you of technical SEO, security issues, things like that, in which you can even put that into a Slack channel. So that way in your Slack, when different technical or security issues come up, it automatically Slacks you.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I'll keep going on my second question. If you were to break down the total marketing motion of a company, how how much of that spend or the time and resources you spend should be SEO versus other marketing motions?
So SEO is, I talk about sort of a media mix model in which you want to have multiple avenues and multiple channels of distribution of your content and thought leadership. So there's a role for, programmatic and OTT. There's a role for SEO, PPC, social media, even traditional methods. There's a lot of folks that now will put QR codes on billboards and brochures and things like that, because then that can be tracked. That QR code takes them to a landing page on the site that is what we call UTM coded, meaning that URL is crafted to specifically let you know that it came from that specific marketing material. So, SEO's role is, I don't want to, different industries have different budgets and different capabilities of what they can afford. SEO should be part of that mix, and SEO can actually make your other expenditures more efficient, particularly if you invest in pay-per-click advertising, PPC or SEM, whichever sort of nomenclature you want to use, in which then when you grow your organic visibility around a number of queries and keywords, you can then strategically withdraw your PPC spend, because 70% of clicks still go to the organic listings, not to PPC, and then you can reallocate that budget. So SEO's role is to take up that real estate on the screen in the local pack and the organic listings, and then help you strategically make your PPC more efficient in terms of budget spend. So again, I don't want to give percentages or costs, because there are agencies that charge anywhere from $500 a month to $5,000 a month. Of course, you want to be cognizant of what your budget is. And, a product like that or a strategy like SEO or PPC, it's like anything. You don't want to go with the cheapest, because you get what you pay for. But again, if you can't afford someone that's 5,000, naturally that's just going to be untenable for you. So it just kind of depends on, your own unique composition.
Awesome. Thanks.
Dane, I have one last question. Do you have experience with optimizing for voice search? So when people are using Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant, how does this apply or carry over?
Yeah, so voice search, that's sort of when I talked about more of the conversational queries, right? Those longer tail queries, because people with voice search are using things like Perplexity and Search GPT in the same way. It's more natural language. And so as you craft content that's based around, as I said earlier, like not just the what people search for, but how they search for it. So if we can incorporate the actual language they are using, again, the stronger that correlation. So whether it's a search on a desktop, voice search, or leveraging, an AI search engine, sort of the context is still the same, as that you want to make sure that the language you use and what you're optimizing for is based on the actual consumer, and not trying to game the system by just optimizing it for how you think a search engine or an AI engine is going to find it.
Very good. Okay. That's time, folks. Thanks, Dane, for coming in and presenting.
Thank you all.
From Las Vegas. And we'll see you all here next week on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dane.
Thanks, Dane.